Hello and welcome to Baking on a Budget. Now, this time we have a very tasty little snack or light lunch idea, and these are vegetable pasties. Very simple to make, very nutritious and delicious as always. So, we've got all the materials over here that we're going to use to make this. I'm going to run through this one by one, tell you exactly how much I'm using and how much all of this costs. Okay, so to begin with, we have one onion at 9p. We have one stick of celery at 6p. We have about 120 grams of potato at 11p. We have 100 grams of carrot at 5p. We have about 70 grams of cabbage. That's going to be 10p. We have a quarter of a tin of garden peas at 12p. We have one vegetable stock cube at 12p. We have a teaspoon of corn flour, just to thicken this up a little. That is 2p. We have half a teaspoon of thyme at 2p. Half a teaspoon of parsley at 2p, 1 teaspoon of black pepper at 4p, and a tablespoon of vegetable oil at about 2p. Now that's the filling. To make the pastry, we have got 450 grams of plain flour at 22p. We have 115 grams of unsalted butter at 87p, and we have the same 112 grams of lard at 15p. We also have a pinch of salt and some cold water for the pastry. So the total of this recipe is £1.99, and I'm saying we're going to get 6 really nice deep filled vegetable pasties out of that, making each pasty 33p each. Now the first thing we're going to do is get on with making the pastry. So let's get that stuff over onto the table and let's get that pastry made. In the bowl we have 450 grams of plain flour. To that I'm going to put a good pinch of salt. There's quite a lot of flour there, that'll do it. And then we want to add the fats. So here we have 112 grams of butter and 112 grams of lard. So that's about half and half. Half the amount of fats to the amount of flour. Okay, now the process here is to simply rub these fats into the flour. This will take a little while, there is a lot of it here, but obviously if you have a food processor, you could do this in a food processor in seconds flat. I don't use one, so it's by hand. And we just want to keep rubbing these pieces of fat into the flour and rubbing the flour into the fat until we have something which resembles a fine sort of breadcrumb. This is indeed going to be a short crust pastry for these. Now you could obviously buy ready-made pastry if you wanted to, but I always think homemade is so much better. And if you would like to see a video of me making short crust pastry in a little bit more detail than this, I'm just going to rush through it here. There is a video there where I will go into the detail of how I do this. But for now, I'm just going to rub this in and we'll come back when that's all done. And that's had a good going over. Still a few lumps in there, but I'm not going to let that worry me too much at this point. Very good workout for the hands and fingers, this one. But there it is. As long as we've got it, most of that is crumbed in, as I say, a few lumps here and there. Just sieve through it and see if we can find any of the larger ones, and we'll rub them through. Okay, that's going to do it for me. Next thing we want is the water in here. And I have cool water or cold water, and I have 170 millilitres of it. Now I'm going to pour some of that in and I'm going to mix it in and just see how that comes together. If it needs a little more, we can give it a little more, but we'll just work that in a little bit at a time. Maybe a touch more, actually. That is starting to dry out a little. So we'll just put another little drizzle of that water in there and we'll get this all brought together. A little bit of the water left, but that's used about 170 ml of the cold water in that. Okay, so we'll just take all that off the side of the bowl and then we'll turn that out. Very good. Now I'm going to cover this with some cling film. I'm going to put it in the fridge whilst we prepare the filling for these delicious pasties. Okay, the pastry is chilling in the fridge, and what we want to do now is just prep the veg. Now I'm going to cut all of this up in fairly small cubes. Considering this is going into a pasty, so we don't want huge pieces of it in there. So we're going to cube the potato and the carrot, and we'll chop this onion fairly finely. And I think what I'll do, I'll fry up the onion and the celery first, just to soften them, and then we'll put the carrot in and the cabbage and let them cook for a while, and then last we'll put the potato in, because we want the potato to be soft but not too soft. We don't want it to go to mush like a mashed potato. We just want fairly firm small cubes of it. Right, there is our onion, and the same with a stick of celery. Alrighty, and whilst the onion and the celery are softening, we're going to start preparing the carrot. I'm going to chop a piece off like that, chop it that way, then the same as if we were doing the battens or the julienne type of carrot, but then just chop it that way as well, and we'll end up with these really small little cubes of carrot, and they'll be delicious in there. Now the vegetables for this, it really is a thing of choice, whichever vegetables you prefer or whatever you have to hand. I'm simply using what I had to hand here. You know, you could put broccoli in there if you wanted to, you could put green beans in, anything, any type of vegetable that you like. You prepare it exactly the same as this, and then make them into your pasties. Now again, this is a Maris Piper potato, so they do soften up fairly quickly, these. So I'm going to leave this just, 5 minutes before the end of the boiling of this material. So I have flat, and chop it again down that way. And if we lay that down, that will chop into cubes very easily, very nicely. Right, I'll do the same with the other one, prep the cabbage, and then my veg is ready to go. For the cabbage, I'm just going to take a couple of slices off that. There it is. And again, I'll just chop that fairly finely. Okay, over by the hob, and the onions and celery, nice and soft at this point. So I'm going to add the carrots into that, and I'm going to add the cabbage into that. I'm not putting the potato in yet, as I say. We'll leave that until this lot has softened a little. Now, in the pot I have a vegetable stock cube, which I've dissolved in some boiling water. I'm going to pour this in. Now, we don't want too much of this. We don't want this to be too sloppy. We can remove some of it later if necessary, and we'll leave a little bit, and we'll thicken that up with the corn flour, and that will make a beautiful filling. There we are. Right, I'm going to give that about 5 minutes on the hob with the carrots in, and then we'll come back to it, put the potatoes in, do the herbs and seasoning, and then that should be ready to go. And whilst the filling is just simmering away on the hob, back to the pastry. Now that's been in the fridge, it's cooled down very nicely. I'm going to cut it in half because there's quite a lot of it to handle there. I'll get some flour on the board, and the idea is we want to make some oblong shapes for these. I'm going to make them about 5 by 7.5 inches each oblong, and we'll see how many we'll get out of this. I mean, I haven't measured this accurately, but we should be good. We're going to get a good 5 or 6. So we want to roll this out, put the flour on the pin, a little bit thinner up the top there. That's it. Now I'm going to cut a straight line on that. I'll try my best to anyhow. And again down this way. And we'll cut the top square also. Now that may be a bit wide actually. So I'm saying if I cut it here, cut that about there, then that folded over will make a really nice pasty. So let's have another one of them. There it is. And we won't quite get another, so I'll gather this back up and roll it out again. Alright, that is 7 inches by 5. And there it is, we have 6 of those ready to go. A little bit of pastry left, I don't know how much that is, maybe about 50 grams. So if you are following the recipe and you want 6 of them, you'd probably get away with about 400 grams of the flour and equivalent amounts of the fats. Anyhow, that's going back in the fridge. I may make a quiche later or something like that, and that will go towards that. So back to the hog, and that is looking good. Now at this point I'm going to add the potato to it. There it goes. And to that I'm going to add, as I say, about 1/4 of a tin of these garden peas. Again, obviously you could use fresh peas, you could use frozen peas if you have a bag of frozen peas in your freezer, and just a handful of them would do fine. There it is, looking good. So the next thing I'm going to add to that is some parsley. Again, just about 1/2 teaspoon of parsley in there will do the job. And we want a little bit of this thyme, again, about 1/2 teaspoon of that. And as ever, a generous crack of this black pepper. This is about a teaspoon of the black pepper. Okay, and we'll mix all that in. Now, I don't think we're going to need salt. There will be salt in the stock cube. If you prefer a little more salt, now would be the time to add it. Right, now I'm going to cover that for just a couple of minutes, and I'll check those potatoes. As I say, we don't want them mushy. We don't want any of this veg mushy. And I think a couple of minutes under some heat will do that fine. Obviously, these are going to bake in the oven as well, so that will help soften them up. Alrighty, so this lot has had a little bit longer and is softening up nicely. Still a bit of the liquid in the bottom, so I'm going to add this corn flour to it. And we'll see if we can thicken that up. And again, if there's too much of that, we'll just strain some off when it comes to putting the fillings in. I just pick this up with a slatted spoon or something like that, you know. Yes, that's thickening up nicely on the bottom there. That's very good. Obviously, it's a thing, we don't want it to be too dry, but on the other hand, we don't want them to be too runny either. We don't want too much liquid in there. And as I say, if necessary, we can always strain a little of that off when it comes to putting them in the pasties. Right, so I'm going to take this off the heat at this point, and I'm going to stick it in some cold water in the sink, just in a bath of the whole pan in a bath of cold water, and that will help cool it down, and then we'll make pasties. Okay, our mixture has cooled down, so what we're going to do is take one of these. We are going to take some of this, and we'll put that in there like that. A little more maybe. There we are. Now, I'm just going to egg wash around the sides of that. Again, you could do this with milk if you wish, or you could indeed just do it with water. But I'm making some cakes today, so I've got a lot of eggs out, and I'll just use a little bit of one of them for this egg wash. Alright, that is folding over there. You want to press all of this down, make sure the filling is tucked up inside. That's marvellous, look at that. Right, now we have a fork just to crimp around that. We have a knife just to put some slices or slits in the top, just to allow that to breathe a little whilst it's baking. Okay, same process again. A good spoonful of the filling, a little bit of egg wash, and then fold that up. And as you can hear, the oven is whirring away in the background, just coming up to temperature. That should be there soon. And we're going to put these in the oven at 160 degrees for about 30-35 minutes until they're nice and golden brown on top. Right, same process with the rest of these. I will just continue doing this until I've got them all done. Okay, so they're going to get a quick egg wash on top, and then they're off into the oven. Okay, let me show you this. These were in the oven for about 30 minutes, something like that. Turned out absolutely beautiful. I'm having this one with a little bit of coleslaw, but that looks and smells absolutely delicious. It's a purely vegetable pasty. I did use some lard in the pastry, but that could be substituted with a vegetable shortening or more butter. So I'm going to have a taste of this. Doesn't that look nice? Full of beautiful tender vegetables. That is spot on. Now, a bit of coleslaw with it. That's absolutely marvellous. That is going to make a really tasty light lunch. The pasty itself, a little coleslaw, maybe a slice of cake as well. But that pasty is 33 pence, and the coleslaw goes with it really well. This is from a previous video, recipe, where I made the mayonnaise and then made the coleslaw, and it is delicious. The homemade short crust pastry is absolutely delicious, and the filling itself, it's a few vegetables peeled. So there it is, we've got a total of 6 beautiful vegetable pasties for £1.99. 6 for £1.99. So once more, can I say, if you've enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more delicious, very simple to make recipes like this, always very inexpensive and delicious, do consider subscribing to the channel. Many more recipes to come. But for now, I'm going to enjoy the rest of this pasty and the coleslaw, and I'll thank you very much for watching.